handed out her product, and let's get on with Baylor Regional Park Long Range Plan Update.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chair, members. Sam Pertz, Parks and Trail Supervisor. Thanks for some time here. Again, maybe the sequencing of our conversations today are a bit out of step, but I think we'll stay on the same page. I'm going to just get us kicked off here, and I'm going to turn it over to Candace Amberg, our project manager and principal on the project here, as we are about, I'd say 2/3 to 3/4 of the way through our schedule and with the project. I do think we're on track for success here. I'm excited to share with you concept today, 2 concept diagrams for direction and feedback from the board before we then engage with the public again. So here's some things we're going to cover with you today. Again, get you caught up to where we've been, share with you a high-level summary of the community engagement and desires that have come from what I think is a pretty dang good effort in community engagement. We've been with all the cities in Carver County at some kind of community event with this item, trying to get feedback from folks, from constituents and community members on how they envision Baylor Regional Park 20 years and beyond. Share with you the concept diagrams, 2 of them, and then get some direction from you and share a little bit about what our next steps are as we look to the finish line here with the project. So with that, I'm going to turn over to Candace here, and she can walk you through the presentation. Again, we hope that this can be interactive in some way with comments and feedback on concept when we get there. So Candace.
Tell me which buttons to hit, the arrows? Yeah. All right, thank you. I'm Candace Amberg from WSB, so I'm a landscape architect, planning and design for Parks and Recreation. So we have developed the conceptual plans, and we are getting ready to take them out to the public so we can get some more feedback. So again, we just want to make sure our planning effort meets the Metropolitan Council's 2050 Park Policy Plan. So it's a brand new effort. They've kind of refined things a little bit, so we're doing a little bit differently. But again, it kind of touches on all the items that they want to see within the actual written document when we're done. So as Sam mentioned, we did go through a very robust community engagement process, and we'll just kind of keep continuing that effort. And so everything you can do to kind of get that information about the 2 upcoming open house meetings out to everybody that would be extremely helpful, so we can get some good turnout, or at least getting people going online to review the concepts that way as well. So again, we've held community meetings, been to different events. We have a technical advisory committee, our online map, and have been interviewing with specific stakeholders throughout the project. And the purpose of this plan is, again, to create that long-range vision for the park itself, to meet the needs of your current users right now, since it's, last was done in the 70s, because we want to make sure that, it's accounting for some of these new trends and what people really want to see, so that as you are making improvements to the park, you know how to phase that appropriately, what kind of infrastructure might be needed, and what might be a higher priority versus a lower priority for short, mid, and long range goals. So in terms of public engagement, some of the things that we saw is, again, camping, the observatory, disc golf, the trails, the lake for fishing, and the rec programs have all been brought up time and again by the people we've talked to. They really appreciate all the things that they can do out at this park. They love the rural character of the park itself, and they love being able to camp, so close to home. Some of the other things we heard is they do want, especially in terms of the campground itself, reliable water recreation opportunities. So many campers are, just when they go there and the beach is closed, they're like, what else can we do to get some of that water experience going? They're also looking for maybe some more creative play experiences and facilities, but overall it's more modernizing the amenities that are out there. So making sure that the utilities we have kind of meet their needs in terms of electrical hookups. Maybe there's different types of pull-through or longer campsites, because everybody has some larger rigs than maybe when this was first constructed back in the day. And maybe consider some seasonal sites for additional revenue operations. And then just adding different camping experiences. So again, we do have some primitive tent sites. We have the back-in, RV sites. But, are there other things that people are looking for? So like camper cabins, yurts, and glamping were all brought up. Because a lot of people just, don't want to be in a tent, but they don't have the funds to kind of have their own camper or RV. So they want to be able to get out and experience the same thing without having to actually invest in, those amenities. So the other things we heard was maybe consider the farmhouse as like a rental property and improve the barn venue itself. And then other things people just, of course, ask about are pickleball and off-leash dog areas for their dog companions that they bring camping with them. Other thing that we heard is that everybody loves the Astronomical Society and the observatory out here. Many will actually time their campground activities or scouting activities or any other activity in line with some of these events that are taking place. They really appreciate having that out on the site, and that does draw from a very large regional area. So whereas Baylor Park itself and some of the amenities and the campground is a lot more local to Carver County, the Astronomy Society, the observatory, really draws from across the entire metro. And so again, they have concerns with the light dome and want to make sure that we're working with the communities in Carver County to maybe limit that through some, development codes as people, or those are going in and new lighting standards are going in, and then allowing for some of their future expansion opportunities on site. Other things we heard is trails are very highly valued. They love the natural surfaces of them, but there's always ways that we could integrate some more paved surfaces in here. A lot of communities would love to see more connectivity, especially to Norwood, Young America, and up to the Dakota Rail Regional Trail. The boardwalk, people really love that, so that was a good investment. And, especially for some of the people who have like mobility issues or are seniors, just said, we would like some more places to stop and rest along those trails, as we're enjoying them. And then just either look at alternative water types of recreation if it's not possible to kind of keep that beach open. And then again, just upgrading some of the things like rental rooms, spaces. But overall, I think awareness was kind of one of the biggest things that we came across. So understanding that people weren't always aware of like what the park had to offer. And so anything that we can do to kind of keep promoting that and working with the communications team here at Carver County to make sure all the communities are also kind of doing their due diligence and getting that information out to the people within each of the communities. Again, disc golf has a huge draw, and then just looking at more family-friendly and multi-generational considerations. Again, some other ideas that were brought up, but maybe more difficult to kind of fit in with the existing developed area, were things like an off-leash dog facility, pickleball, a couple people brought up mini golf, and then like those little kid pump tracks. So again, there were some things brought up, but maybe we just could not fit into either one of the conceptual plans that you will see here today. So with that, we're going to get into the goals and the conceptual plans that were created. Our goal here today is to make sure that you are, good with the conceptual plans that we have shown, so we can take them out to the public at our public open house meetings. But we're also looking for feedback from you as well on things that you maybe like or don't like about each one, just so I can keep that noted. And as we go through and get feedback from the community, we'll be taking that along with your feedback and what you think might be higher priority items to kind of work our way through a preferred approach plan. So again, some of the short range goals was to kind of address some water recreation opportunities, modernize and improve facilities, enhance revenue generation opportunities was really important, but also overall natural resource management. There are some issues not only with water quality, but making sure that our woodlands out there are successfully regenerating for, that long-term success of the maples out there. And then again, just making sure that we're addressing user safety, especially in terms of circulation, to kind of keep pedestrians from vehicular areas as much as possible. And then again, increase the use and awareness of the park. The more we can get people aware of what's out there, the more we can get those people coming out and using the park on a daily basis. Long-range goals were maybe a loop trail all the way around the park somehow, or maybe around Eagle Lake. Obviously, that will be contingent upon like where a feasible route might be. So those might be really long range in terms of like actual road improvement projects that could be combined with something like that. And then regional connectivity, as mentioned before. And then, looking at any potential future land acquisitions and further development of the park. All right, so overall, We kind of see the main park developed area is within that gray box. And so that's the area we're going to focus on the concept plans that I'll be showing today. The two little areas in the green were the parcels that were brought up as potential land acquisitions, just because there is a willing seller at the moment. And so we just kind of identified if that were ever incorporated into the park, what kinds of things could kind of take place there. So the northern parcel, we see, that little dash line going through there because there just could be a trail route through there, or it would loop back and connect into the park, or maybe it would connect back out to the road to incorporate that loop trail previously discussed. Otherwise, it just further adds more natural resource areas to the park itself in terms of overall management and enhancement of the park character. The little green section on the bottom is the area adjacent to Eagle Lake. And so that is more connected to the developed portion of the park area itself. So that would have access to it, whereas the north parcel does not have like any type of road access at this point. On the southern parcel, some things for consideration. Again, trail systems through there, restoring a lowland wetland area. But it also has some nice high knolls with beautiful views across the lake itself. And then you'll see the big dark blue dash line that kind of runs right along County Road. And that just identifies a potential future regional linking trail, basically, to get you from Norwood, Young America, up to the Dakota Rail Trail itself. And then again, just addressing some of the natural resource management. The other thing to note on here is that north of the developed area, you'll see a little green oval. And in one of the concept plans, we do have identifying taking the maintenance facility building out of our main park area and moving it elsewhere. So this was a potential location should that ever be relocated. And that would offer an ability to maybe combine it with like a new sugar shack. So it'd be kind of more within the woodlands itself where those maple syrup activities take place. All right, so first concept that we're going to be looking at is the one I have up on the screen right now. This concept is primarily focused on the campground area in a more robust manner than the second concept that you're going to see. Just because we know camping is like one of the higher rated items and one of the bigger draws for the park site itself. So we really wanted to take a look at that. The rest of the park kind of is just adding on or enhancing to the existing amenities out here. So in this concept, we have the existing park entrance remains in the same location. So overall, the roadways primarily stay the same. But what we've done is we've reconfigured both the north campground as well as the southern campground. Now, each of these new campground areas would have a new like restroom shower building just to make sure that the entire loop areas are within the like 400-foot distance for each campsite to that restroom structure, just because that is a code. So in the northern campground, you see we've expanded a little bit. It allows for more space for each of the back end stalls, but we've also added a pull-through area just for more of a group camp for RVs. So you can pull in a couple, maybe 2 or 3 different RVs within that area. And then we've also added its own little playground structure kind of within there because some of the people up there are like, we don't want our kids to walk all the way to the southern portion, so it'd just be handier to have one up here. Most of the primitive tent sites along the wetland kind of remain as is, but we've moved them around that little peninsula water inlet. So on this particular concept, we've added some camper cabins. So we have shown 3 small cabins and 2 larger camper cabins. Now, ideally, these would be located in maybe a more remote location, because usually when you get a camper cabin, that's the type of experience that you're looking for. We just did not have that ability within the park space for development to accomplish that. So this is our method of kind of adding those camper cabins kind of in their own area, but they're still within an overall campground space. So again, the smaller blue dotted lines or dashed lines represent pedestrian trails running through here. And then the dark gray lines represent vehicular routes. So again, we kind of show like how we can separate these out to make it safer for people walking through the site. Now, since we do have the maintenance building remaining in this concept with their parking area, we have shown that pedestrian route on the other side of that building, because right now they're just walking straight through where the maintenance vehicles are coming and going from that facility. Then the other big item to point out on here is that this concept shows removing the farmhouse entirely. So we have taken that out, and we have relocated the dump station, which is currently within the campground areas between the two loops, and we've moved it out to the front. What that does is it allows everybody within the campground to be able to use that dump station as they're leaving the site. Right now, anybody in the lower southern campground has to backtrack to get to that and try and loop around and then leave again. The other thing it does is right now a lot of people come from other areas of the county, other campsites, especially when that Windstock or Windfest is going on, and will come here specifically just to use the dump station, pay their fee to do that and leave again, which means you're bringing outside traffic into the existing campground currently and then leaving again. So that takes that use out of the campground, so there's no conflict with people who are just, using the campground and want to make sure their kids are out there, not getting run over by a long line of people coming to use the dump station. All right, so where the existing dump station is, we have turned that into a group RV campsite. And then we've also realigned the southern campground, so you see a nice radial design with that, again, to just expand out the opportunities of the length of each stall, the spacing between the stalls, and then offered a couple of additional group campsites where they can just pull those all the way through. All right, now in terms of the barn, so on this concept we have some modest barn renovations. We're saying we're taking that meeting room space out as a meeting room rental space and turning that into a clubhouse for the campground. So this is a place where they can come in and they can still do their little camp store or activities, things like foosball, pool, just a place to hang out, especially like when there are, cloudy or rainy days kind of going on. We've seen those pretty popular with a lot of campground sites. And then again, just improving it as a check-in space. But the barn is no longer going to serve as a place for like showers for the campground. Since each of those campsites have their own restroom shower facility, that barn no longer has to serve that purpose. So it can just kind of be your normal opening and closing times and serve as that clubhouse and check-in amenity. All right, so moving on, right after you enter the park site on the south side or southeast side, we do show a parking lot. So this is, again, to kind of provide some parking for the events that take place on site. But we also show a new park building, more of a single level, maybe 6,000 to 8,000 square feet. And this is where county programs and like education might take place, where equipment rentals come out of. And this is where the new like event or meeting rental room space would be located since we've taken it out of the barn. It has nice views across what would be the shoreline area. And then we've also shown a little canoe or kayak launch down in that little bay with like a little trail connection. All right, so getting into more of the central park, so that's more of your day-to-day park activities. We have worked all of our amenities around that observatory. So we're really highlighting the focus of the observatory in this concept and kind of created the radial pattern around it where the main observatory would kind of like act like the sun, and you can see radial pass around there where we would have little planetary nodes that would kind of tie to their programming. They also have like a little small stage out there which could enhance some of their programs that they have on site, or maybe it's also used for like music or movies in the park, and just using that lawn seating out there. Also working outward in that radial parking area closest to the beach. So we've redone that, so it has that radial design on the right side next to the beach, as well as the opposite side. So we relocated that parking lot by the picnic shelter to bring that further in, because there is a group campsite up in that woods, and this brings that parking lot closer to them, so it's easier for them to load and unload all of their stuff to get out to that group campsite. We've also shown a new picnic shelter that could have restrooms within it, again, to kind of help service that group camp area. So the existing knob where it currently exists would just be additional area for that disc golf that may be affected by some of these new developments. Now, working our way out to the beach itself, we have naturalized the shoreline, so it's no longer a swimming beach. The fishing pier remains out there. And what we've done is just basically added a new group picnic shelter up to the north, kind of looking out over the lake. It has beautiful views out there with a nice deck. So really not really changing what's out there. We're just adding onto that, other than adding a more creative playground, like themed out here right at the beach area. And this could be themed around, you know, space and planets or the farm and rural theme. There are many opportunities for this playground that could help take shape. So I think that pretty much covers the entire first concept. And I think we have, yeah, minus that. There we go. That's the slide I was looking for. So again, this is just example imagery to help people understand what it is we're proposing. So off to the left, you see some examples of what a camper cabin looks like from the outside as well as inside. There's an example of what a clubhouse would look like for the campground, a program meeting room, and then of course on the far right side, some examples of creative playgrounds kind of themed around either farms, planets, solar systems, you name it. Again, just some visual aids to help with the community.
Where's the image in the bottom right come from? Do you know if that's is that Minnesota based or is that somewhere else?
What is
The image on the bottom right,
on the
Which image?
the one on the bottom right.
Playground.
the playground with that's landscape structures.
Is this installed somewhere in Minnesota or is it?
I don't know where
Okay.
it's actually
Because I know
installed.
bottom left is Dakota. I've been in there, and the top left is I think is Shakopee. They're new ones, or not Shakopee, but Scott County. Yeah. Okay. Good. Thanks.
All right. So moving on to concept 2, my voice
Can we
last.
pause
Yep.
for just a minute and go back to
Sure
concept 1? That
can.
was a lot. That was a lot.
Yes, it's a lot.
And I guess I'm gonna look at you, Marty. I've matured and evolved in my view of what county parks are, and I know you do a good rundown: city parks, county parks, state parks, et cetera. When I look at some of the stuff clustered on the bottom left, I've been educated that these aren't necessarily traditional for a regional or county park. A basketball court, a playground, a sand volleyball, et cetera. Not saying that they don't exist, but I'm curious what the closest city park is that might have these amenities be more natural. And then I'm also curious, pickleball, everybody seems to like pickleball. Where do we put it? You know, oh geez, county's got some land, put it in the county. I've seen more often than not, almost exclusively that being a city responsibility, not a county with the tink, tink, tink and the involvement and whatever. Can you just paint the vision of what we're seeing today? Are these typical within a county park system or are these not typical?
And I can answer that a little bit as well. So when you're seeing the half-court basketball, playground, sand volleyball, those can be found in regional parks.
Yeah.
These that you're seeing here are kind of more for the campground area itself. It's kind of helps supplement the recreational amenities typically found at a campground site,
Okay.
which is found. If
fair.
you're looking for close by, like pickleball, dog
Yep.
parks, Norwood Young America, just to the south of here, has started or maybe actually finished completing a dog park and pickleball courts.
Okay, both, okay.
Mhm.
Well, and we have a dog park at Minnewaska as well.
And I know that
Correct.
the mayor of Waconia wants one in Waconia.
Just to
Yeah.
also reiterate, that what Candace is showing here is really what's been developed through the public input process.
Oh, okay, okay.
And so just put, that lens in this.
Yep.
In terms of, we've received a lot of information from the public and we're responding to it.
Yep, okay. I don't know that it's stated policy, but in my mind, I look at this, the overlay of, could we generate half of the operating cost of a park on an annual basis from the activities thereof? And so I think there's 5 or 6 camper cabins. They're wildly popular. I'm glad we're gonna have our first one middle of next year, which is cool. We're not pioneers in the space, but we're towards the leading edge of it, I think. They generate, just for math, about $10,000 a year in net cash flow. At least that's what Three Rivers is doing with some of theirs. So that's a good number that if we had 5 of them, 50 grand of cash would be generated potentially. And then I really like I don't know what you called it, band shell, stage area, et cetera. Is that just a loose place to put it or is the topography put it there? Because I know that there's a natural, embankment, if you will, that leads down to the water, which I've seen a lot of amphitheaters lately, a lot of other places that people sit on the grass. So it's close to no cost. And then the natural flow of that allows you to have a great viewing of a stage or it's a wide swath, small stage all the way up to full-fledged amphitheater.
So if you're talking about the little stage by the observatory does sit up higher, so
Yeah.
it would be kind of level with their stuff. And then there's existing lawn seating areas out there.
How about the gray areas around the semicircle, the
Oh,
semicircle?
that's
just
your
to the-
existing restroom and your other existing picnic shelter.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
Mhm. Move on. Okay, concept 2 is more robust than the first concept. First concept, again, focused a lot on the campground, and this one does improvements to the campground, but we're looking at, like I said, a little bit more robust in terms of the overall park design. So this particular concept, we have moved the park entrance location further down the road where it's a little bit straighter. And again, we would have like about a 200-foot lane to turn into the park just for safety reasons. This brings everybody who's coming into the park directly by the barn before it splits off. So once you're past the barn, anybody doing your day-to-day park activities would go to the right. Your campground would continue on straight, kind of as it currently does. With this particular thing, the northern campground does not change much, other than I think we lost one stall that got converted over. But we're basically leaving it as is and the existing restroom as is. So we did not change the layout of this, just because if we were, then that means we just have to put in a new restroom structure to meet that code compliance for the length. The other thing we did is we converted some of those primitive sites along the water's edge to group camp areas. So right now, the group camp area, as I mentioned, was in the woodlands, kind of more in your main park area. This takes it out of there and puts it over into the campground, because a lot of the scout troops that we talked to are already doing that because they don't like the woodlands. It's really buggy and it's kind of far away, and they didn't like the restrooms, so they kind of like just use the existing stalls out here, rent spaces, and kind of hold their scout activities out there anyway. So we said, let's just change this up a little bit. Now, the southern campground area, we did just alter that loop a little bit, and you see the green stalls. Those are more your pull-through sites. The rest are the back end. And again, we have added a new restroom structure so that the bar no longer has to serve as that shower space for the campground any longer. Again, the campground amenities, same sand volleyball, playground, half-court basketball. Now, on this one, we have done what I'm saying, major barn renovations. When I say major, it would be costly. So we are suggesting in this concept that you kind of turn that upper portion of the barn into more of that meeting room venue space where, if somebody were holding like a wedding reception, that could take place up there. But I have a feeling it would be a lot of work based on similar barns like in Eden Prairie of what they had to go through to do that. But this concept really focuses on keeping that core area between the farmhouse and the barn as like that event space. So we're keeping the farmhouse here. We're suggesting that, okay, maybe the farmhouse is that rental as like a VRBO, Airbnb, and then instead of having the road that's currently dividing up the barn from the farmhouse, it's more of that grand lawn area. So events could take place outside of that, and it connects the barn and that farmhouse together a little bit more. So that's why we diverted the vehicle access around that barn. It was to kind of just keep that core farm area as it was meant to be. So again, once you get through here, we kind of show you could have like a little garden space. It could be ornamental, it could be vegetables, you could maybe even sell the vegetables out here. Who knows what that garden space could be. But again, it just enhances that farm feel to it. So once you get into the park site itself, again, we do have a parking lot kind of off to the side. So that kind of helps supplement the activities for events, but also any events that might be taking place between the barn and the farmhouse as well. We have similar to the first concept, we have altered that central recreational area. So we've moved that parking lot over a little bit more, just so we could develop more space for recreation here. So in this concept, which is not shown in the first one, is we have included an interactive water feature. So this could be as simple as like a natural water thing where kids can get around and splash, like little creeks flowing through there, or it could be a nature-themed splash pad. There are many, variations of how you could do this. And then we also have that tied to maybe a nature-themed playground in several pods. So we kind of create this overall theme around this new group picnic shelter out here between, the water and the nature playground, and then a couple of volleyball courts. So this is kind of that core recreational area, and it's nice because it's in the middle of the park, so the people who are using the campground can easily walk to it. Right now, with everything located out at the beach, it's too far for them to walk, and they will literally drive from the campground out to the beach site. So this kind of puts that in close relation to where they're staying as well. Now, as we work our way out to the beach itself, we've basically obliterated all the stuff that you had out there and are putting in what we're calling the Lakefront Observatory Building. So this would be maybe a larger building, and we see this including everything from more of your event rental room with a beautiful deck kind of looking out over the lake itself. Maybe focusing on birding observation deck out here, since so many people come to the park and, for the birds themselves that they see on the lake. It would have restrooms. It would have the park equipment rentals. And it could even have like a small nature center with educational classrooms for the county to be able to, run some of their operations out of. And again, the rentals. So directly connected to the loop trail system that we have in here. So, winter ski rentals, those types of things, as well as summer. Again, similar to the first one, we're naturalizing the shoreline. So removing the swimming beach itself, making a ADA path down to the bottom there. And then on this one, you'll see that our main loop trail through that Central Park area has a bit of a yellow highlight behind that. So we're saying let's, add lights to that to make it easier for, some of the winter activities as well as the summer. But we would want to make sure that it's kind of in compliance with the Dark Sky Initiative. So that could be switched from red to regular light for some of those activities, because even the observatory said it'd be great to have some lights if we had that red light feature to it. So those are the two main concepts. So you can kind of see the difference between access, some of the circulation, and where some of this development is taking place. And we have a imagery here, so it kind of shows you the barn venue room example. That is Eden Prairie, how they converted theirs into a rental room space. We showed an example of what that nature-themed playground could be. So a lot of times people say nature-themed playground and they think it's just a couple of sticks or things. No, I mean, you can, again, it can vary greatly. It can still be fun and creative. And kind of showing you some examples of interactive water play. So you see the little creek on the top versus nature-themed splash pad elements at the bottom. And then off to the right, you see maybe what a nature center meeting venue could look like. You can see that even has like a deck looking out over the water as well. And then a small little nature center with some kids sitting at the bottom reading. So that's what we have. And like I said, I think we just wanted to make sure that we weren't showing anything that was, something we should not be showing. And then if you had like your own thoughts in terms of priorities or elements, be willing to listen to some of those items as well.
Well, thank you very much. It's a lot.
That was a lot of information. Can I ask a process question?
Yes.
So I understand that you are having these open houses. What is the process for generating feedback on that, and then what are our next steps after that?
Okay.
Because, by the way, I should have said, I'm sorry, jump in. I'm too task oriented. Thank you for all this work. This is really good stuff. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
I'm coming here today.
Okay.
But process, yes.
Yes. So we'll have the public open house meetings where we'll be presenting each of these concepts. And then we will have both boards that they can put stickers on or print out. So we kind of have them divided into like, this is concept 1, this is concept 2 in terms of access. Do you like that we've kept the access in the same location or moved it like in concept 2? So it kind of goes through each of the elements side by side. So they can kind of mark the things that they like or don't like about each one, because it's never just one concept versus another. It's always little things on each one, and we want to see where people are drawn to kind of determine what some of those priorities might be. And then our next step after we get some of that feedback is to take that and condense this into like one preferred layout plan that kind of meets the objectives of what we hear from the community feedback. We will also have these available online through Social Pinpoint, and there'll be a survey attached to that as well. So if people are not able to meet, or make our public open house meetings, that they will have that option available to them for a while to provide comment on.
And is there a price tag associated with?
Not at this point, no.
Okay.
So we do that for a reason. So we like to dream big at first, identify priorities, and basically scale that back as we move through and kind of come up with our preferred approach. And their priorities kind of help us define how to potentially phase the plan in. So as I stated, a lot of times it comes down to getting infrastructure in first, and you can build that up. So we kind of come up with a plan that kind of provides that, and then it will have projected costs with that. Knowing that they will be in like $25, and that you'll have to adjust for inflation as you kind of go through.
So since this is a long-term plan, what are we thinking from a time frame standpoint?
Generally, implementation can take 20, 30, up to 50 years to even like get these in. So that's why we say once this plan is in place, maybe every 20 years, 15 to 20 years, you update this and make refinements as needed because things change. People's priorities change. New trends come about that didn't exist before, and so then you just update it as needed.
All right.
Candace, can you go back to slide number 5, and as we go back and talk about the planning schedule, and you talked about the kickoff and the data collection and that project analysis. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because that's when we met with the landowners and we got a lot of feedback from the landowners. And then also there was, I don't want to call it a mini open house, but you had individuals there that were talking about concepts and what they wanted to see.
Yes, yeah. So we did have, it was an open house meeting, but it was more of the community, adjacent residents. They showed up, talked with us. Again, their primary concerns were related to water quality, but they had like great information. We kind of documented the things that they told us. We also held another meeting later on in the summer at Baylor Park. It was kind of an open house style meeting there as well. Most of the people, I think there was just a couple of people who came from outside specifically for that meeting. Everybody else was kind of a park user already. But we've also gone out to numerous locations throughout the community and gathered feedback as well as online just to see what people are saying about what they use currently, what they would like to see out here. And we kind of use that in terms of our analysis of the site. So we needed to understand, okay, where are the wetlands, where are the issues, where are some good opportunities for some of these developments. And that's kind of what led us to where we are today in the development of the concept plans themselves.
Thank you.
And then the remainder of this is might tweak a little bit because November is when we're going to be getting feedback. So we will not probably start putting that preferred plan together until likely December and finishing that up in January and then kind of bringing that back.
I love the dream stage. It's cool. You get sometimes wrapped up in the timeline, so you can't really see in the future. So I kind of envy your job in this to look in the future. I think it probably goes without not saying, but we're in the midst of historic times in the parks, and a lot of that's on the backs of 20 years of getting here. What we've done for deferred maintenance, what we've done for planning, connection, trails, all that stuff brings us to be able to have a little bit of fun with these conversations. If you've followed me for any length of time, you've heard my plumber analogy. If there's a dozen people at my house and there's an artist and Commissioner Workman and Sarah Carlson and a teacher and a plumber and there's a leak underneath my faucet, I don't really care what anybody else has to say. I want the plumber to fix the darn leak. And in this regard too, I want to hear what everybody has to say, but a lot of times people don't know what they don't know. So I think it's helpful when you show the pictures because people can envision what Nature Park is when they see something. They can envision what youth play looks like when they need them. When I look at the dream stage, I look at this as kind of three-tiered for me is this a multi-generational attraction? And I continue to say it, but our fastest growing population here is 65 plus. and it's shrinking our 18, our sub 18. We have to compete for the youth. We have to compete for them because one of the top reasons people come here is for kids and grandkids. And I think you encapsulated so much of that stuff. We have to be mindful of the budget, clearly. That's why, in my mind, an informal policy of can this park generate 50% of the incremental cost to operate? And then if my glasses were on, oh, there they are. Destination is, I talk a lot about this being a destination. This isn't just for a 5-mile radius along, Baylor. This is for our community. It bleeds over to other communities. And, the only thing that's kind of missing is we got the eastern Carver County. We got this beautiful piece of underdeveloped and underutilized land. And then we have, a whole glob in between where do they go, right? And so as I cluck through some of these things, I think one thing that would be prudent is if our board invited the likes of and this will probably hit a nerve, Hemsey, but invite Bavaria Downs or somebody like that to come out to say, how do we maximize the revenue potential in these spaces? And I say that because Dave just cut a pretty big check for his daughter to get married at a venue.
It was well worth it, Commissioner.
And I'm glad you said that because the experience that they offer and they're well suited to take an old house that was pretty cool, majestic, and make it a place where I think the minimum price to get in it even before you get to chair covers and your first tomato is like $25,000. They know what they're doing when it comes to operating venues and they know how to do it in historic areas. And so I wonder what a conversation or a work session might look like to say, can they maximize our holding in Lake Waconia Regional? We've got a beautiful building. We don't do wedding venues but we have great space and great views. What if they came in and were part of this as a stakeholder too, to say, if we partnered on the capital expense and we had the benefit of utilizing it for 75 to 80% of the time, but 2 events a month, they were able to do it and we were able to capitalize on it. It wouldn't be beyond belief for them to drop $500,000 annually guaranteed on a 10-year contract to help pay for some of this stuff. It wouldn't be beyond belief if our involvement within the Historic Center Society, they did the same at Andrew Peterson Farm, so that we can go from a lost leader or, hey, let's put all this stuff on a grid, but we have no way to pay for it. And so I think that it's prudent to maybe involve those folks. Things that I've gathered through, and I don't know if it fits or it doesn't fit, I'm just going to throw out a few things that people have approached me to say, we don't have this in Carver County, but it could be a destination and it could be an amenity that our local residents, I think we're at 116,000 population growing. You look at McLeod, or the proximity to Sibley or whatever, but we don't have this and they could be destination type things. So I'm just going to put a sticker on one of these things. Ninja Warrior course, they're wildly popular. They're 10 times more used if you have a traditional park system and a Ninja Warrior system. Kids will migrate to this 10 times more than this, and they'll play longer. And I don't know if Ninja Warrior belongs in a county park or not, but if we're putting up basketball courts, why not have? And there's examples in Bloomington, there's examples in Jordan, and it's not all that expensive because it's all on the base floor and there's not high structures. Remote control, I already said. Every year I take my kids on a trip. It's called Love It or Hate It, You're Going to Remember It trip. So my kids have stayed in a chicken coop. They've stayed at a cow farm. They've stayed in a yurt. They've stayed in a dome. There's some interesting ones coming up. I'll report on it another day, but we stayed in a corn bin once. And so if you think about the nature of where this is within, something that we beloved is our farmers and whatnot, wouldn't it be cool if we could recapture some corn bins when farmers are changing theirs out and convert those as a variety of a camper cabin to make us same net result, but different than what everybody else is doing. It's possible. It's less expensive. You could probably generate a lot of stuff. Mountain biking is something we do really well in Carver County, but we talk about it very little. And so you talked about pump track. I imagine you were talking about, I think you were talking about mountain bike pump track. There is a pump track in Shakopee. We have good amenities at Monarch, so those are good places of inspiration. And then I think that Commissioner Fahey and Lynch already said it on a prior conversation. Maybe we didn't bleed it into here, but I like the interconnectivity of the trails, whether they're walking trails or bike trails. Hopefully they're not the motorcycle 35-mile-an-hour e-bike trails. But those are some things as I look at this, like what we're doing today and what we're funding today isn't just for today in our myopic view of what we see today. It's about 20 and 50 years out into the future and what are those possibilities. And I think you covered a lot of those things. So I do think that a conversation with Bavaria Downs or somebody they like could really springboard us, especially bleeding in conversations we're talking about Three Rivers Park District. They're already having conversations like those. They're doing band events for 8,000 people. They're using their natural amenities and they're generating revenue doing it. So I'm offering those as thoughts.
Okay, where do we go next? Commissioner Lynch, did you have a comment?
Yeah, when you were growing up, wasn't your nickname Ninja Warrior?
Something like that.
A lot of
I'm not
information.
sure I know what that program is.
A lot of information. It's great to be in the planning stages. So thanks, Candace and Sam and Marty, for all your work.
Mr. Chair, and yeah, Candace, thanks for all the work. I'm just really looking forward to the open houses as we expand it further and get more feedback. And yeah, both of the concepts for me have these little tidbits of things that would be really cool here, and maybe we move something there. And as we continue to get more exposure to all of this, and as you look at regional park, and I stated this before, and it's located in a township, and it's located in the farm country, and it has a lake amenity. And do we try to preserve that? And is that an overshadowing umbrella? Call it what you may, and try to continue to keep that experience. When people drive out there, there is a distance to drive. For all of us, it's not that far anymore. But you're going by quite a few cornfields, you're going by some cattle, and you're seeing a little bit of the western part of the county. And as this county grows, and then so do we try to preserve that, and with the camper cabins and more tents and more opportunities for that type of concept and implementation and just ideas. I think it's great job, gives us a lot more to think about.
All right, Mr. Chair and members, again, just some next steps here as we've given you a lot of information today on this topic, certainly. So we're going to wrap up here, but we've got some engagement with the public here, and we'll come back to you with that preferred concept. I'm not hearing anything. Objective one today with you all was to hear of any strong concerns we have around the two concepts, and I'm not hearing any. So we're going to proceed and engage with the public. We'll get to a preferred design and be back with you as we move towards the finish line here with this planning process. So,
Very good. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
thank you.
Good job. All right, let's move on to the League of Women Voters.
Thank you for a great presentation. I want to go out to Baylor Park now. Good morning, Chair Workman, Mr. Lynch, Mr. Fahey, Mr. Uterman, and Ms. Anderson. I'll be even closer. How's that?
Good.
Okay. And Mr. Hemsey. And I see that Kendra Olson is in the audience. My name is Sarah Carlson, and I am a resident of the city of Chaska, and I'm representing today the League of Women Voters of Eastern Carver County. I'm fortunate to be joined today by Sam Strukens, the Civic Engagement Director for League of Women Voters of Minnesota, Laura Helmer, who is not only a member of our local league, but is the president of the League of Women Voters Minnesota. Audrey Kramer and Cheryl Street are also represented here today. They are members of Eastern Carver County League of Women Voters and represent our advocacy chair and voter registration. So on behalf of the league, thank you for this opportunity to share the 2024 post-election report conducted by League of Women Voters in 43 of the 87 counties in our state. Just a brief overview of what we'll be doing this morning. Sam Strukens will include a background of post-election reviews and why it's important that the observations and analysis of the elections are conducted. We will share findings of the review with you and provide observations made by league volunteers who participated as observers. 5 members of our league, including Cheryl Street and Laura Helmer, observed in other counties in our state. And Laura will provide a conclusion and perhaps closing remarks about the importance and value of the league's work in election integrity. And so I'd like to ask Sam to come up and join me and give you a brief review of what it is that the post-election review has done.
Welcome, Sam.
Thank you. I'm going to raise this and let me know if you can't hear me at all today. Thanks for having me. I'm Sam Strukins. As Sarah mentioned, I work for the State League of Women Voters, and I've been a Minnesota resident my whole life. Grew up in Winona, Minnesota. So I'm excited to present to you all today. And just as a brief background, the League of Women Voters Minnesota took on the work of Citizens for Election Integrity Minnesota this year, and we are proud to share our observations and report from the post-election review and election certification process. We have over 3,000 members in Minnesota, and we actually represent 43 of the 87 counties through our membership and through local leagues like Eastern Carver County. As you likely know, our mission is to empower voters and defend democracy, and we are a nonprofit membership-based organization. We were established in 1919, and we are committed to being nonpartisan, neither supporting nor opposing candidates or political parties. Citizens for Election Integrity Minnesota began observing post-election review observations in 2006, and we partnered with them in 4 of those years, including last year, as they transitioned and passed along the program to us. CEIMN worked continuously to observe and then work with state legislators and election officials to improve the election certification process based on those observations. And we'll talk a little bit about some of those observations that we noted this year, which were then improved upon through legislative change in the previous legislative session. Observers with the League of Women Voters all attended a training session that was supported by CEIMN, and at the training, observers were shown how to report their observations and agreed to a code of conduct that is printed in the appendix of the report that we gave to you today. And yeah, so I just wanted to, again, establish some context about why this is important. Regardless of who wins or loses, the post-election review process can counter the challenges that our elections face going forward as we look to certify the results. And as a statewide organization dedicated to making sure all voices are heard and that we defend our strong election safeguards, we feel that our presentation today and our work as independent observers of the post-election review can offer confidence in the results of the elections. And so, yeah, as I mentioned, we'll have Eastern Carver County members speak to you today about some of those top lines from our report. And if you, as you see in front of you is the full report. So if you have any questions, I will come back up at the end and can try to answer them, or consult our friends at Citizens for Election Integrity Minnesota to get back to you on any of those answers. And you can also find the previous reports from CEIMN on our website, which are a lot more detailed than ours, as they are very good at looking at the information and presenting on the final results. We presented a lot on our observations and sort of the process itself. So I'll go into that presentation next.
Thanks, Sam. As Sam said, following every general election in Minnesota, a post-election audit is conducted. And its purpose is to check the accuracy of the voting machines. The PER, as I'll refer to it, is in every county and involves election officials hand counting paper ballots from randomly selected precincts and comparing those totals to the corresponding election day voting machines. In 2024, 160 League members from around the state were trained by the League of Women Voters. And then they participated in 43 of the 87 counties. County canvassing boards randomly select the reviews for the precincts for review. Party balanced election judges, something I know you've heard about in the past, hand count ballots in these precincts. The results are then compared to the machine tabulation, and any differences are investigated. In 2024, the races that were audited were for U.S. President, Vice President, U.S. Senate, and U.S. Representative. A complete list, if you're interested, of all the precincts reviewed and their results is available at the Secretary of State's website. In Carver County, 3 precincts were reviewed: Watertown, Norwood Young America, and Chaska Ward 2. A total of 5,182 ballots were hand-counted for each of these 3 races. The hand-counted ballots matched the machine count exactly. The 5 league-trained nonpartisan observers for Carver County included Sue Delsol, Andrea Bender, Debbie McNeil, Carolyn Peterson, and Patsy Green, who are not residents of Carver County, but provided their observation and information about our transparency and trust by noting that our officials followed clear laws to ensure election integrity. The observers saw that the PER was conducted fairly and above board, and noted that the election officials demonstrated exceptional professionalism and thoroughness and remained focused throughout the process, and no outside disruptions occurred. I believe the entire day was close to 7 hours. In short, the observers reported that each county that was reported on were conducted in a transparent manner. So what did it do? It reinforces Minnesota's election processes, that rigorous machine testing before elections, strong election day security, and handling of ballots and election equipment in Carver County followed strict conditions. I do want to acknowledge that in 2024, 2 counties, Scott and Sherburne, faced substantive questions about their vote counting and reporting processes. The administrator for Sherburne County, Bruce Missault, provided a detailed explanation to his county commissioners on the reporting error due to an uncleared memory card. In Scott County, 20 absentee ballots were inadvertently thrown out before being counted by the absentee ballot board in Shakopee. A more precise account of what happened can be found in the District Courts, State of Minnesota, District Court, of Scott County, findings and fact. But motivated by the experience in Shakopee, the 2025 legislature enacted statutory improvements into the laws of Minnesota in Chapter 39, Article 8. If you're interested, and I know that you are, you will go to verifiedvoting.org so that you can see how post-election tabulations are conducted in other states. Some observations. Cheryl Street, who was with us this morning, observed in McLeod County, and Laura observed in Wright County. We thought it would be helpful for you to hear about the results and their observations, so I'd ask Laura to join me, and she'll take us into some concluding remarks, and then we are available for any questions and answers that you might have. Laura?
Hello, Laura.
Oh, hello. Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. It's good to see you. I'm Laura Helmer. As was stated, I am the League of Women Voters Minnesota President. I'm a resident of Chanhassen and a member of the Eastern Carver County League. So I'd like to briefly share my experience as a post-election review observer in Wright County, that was in Buffalo, and then offer a few concluding remarks. Wright County reviewed 4 precincts with a team of 34 election judges. The county election administrator there gave clear guidance and direction on the task at hand, and there was an organized calm throughout the day. And I would say we put in about an 8-hour day there as well. Ballots were sorted into groups of 25 and stacked crosswise. Ballot counters checked each other's work. Ballots were sorted using the 2-person protocol. The head election official was informed of any questionable or incomplete or stray marks that might have affected how the ballot counter read the ballot. 2 team members were present when the count totals were entered on the ballot summary sheet, and teams were kept unaware of the official count until after they had completed their own count. At one point, there was a county commissioner that entered the room and asked a lot of questions of the tables observing and of the county staff about the process. Election day ballots were counted first, and then each precinct moved on to absentee ballots. There was only one issue that day that required some detective work. Buffalo Precinct 1 was short, 13 absentee ballots when they did their count. So it was recounted multiple times by multiple teams and then recounted again, and they kept coming up with the same 13 ballots missing. So the next step was for boxes of all of the other Buffalo precincts to be pulled out of storage. Each box was opened, they were sealed, they were opened and then sorted. And after searching, those 13 ballots were found clipped together in Buffalo Precinct 4 box. That, of course, was the last set of boxes that were opened that day. Of course. Those ballots were returned to their appropriate Precinct 1 storage and then added to the count. At the end of the day, and this is my favorite part of the whole day, at the end of the day, one of the election judges who had been working all day asked our team why we were there and who we were. So we told her we were with the League of Women Voters. We volunteered to observe and document to build and reinforce trust in the process. So she told us she was a first-time election judge. She had been very skeptical and unsure of the election process. She had read a lot about problems and that concerned her. So she decided to see for herself, and she volunteered to be an election judge. She said, quote, "Becoming an election judge helped me feel much better about the process. Now I get it. I see all the steps and the checks that go into running our elections." Commissioners, Minnesota has clear election laws and procedures. From the rigorous voting machine selection and pre-election testing process to the security measures followed on election day to the post-election review audits and election certification process. The League of Women Voters observation and analysis of Minnesota's 2024 post-election review, including some personal testimonials you've heard today, confirms that Minnesota's elections are verifiable and accurate through transparent election certification processes and the tireless dedication of election workers. Minnesotans can and should trust our election results. Thank you for giving us time today to present our findings, and we are happy to answer any additional questions that you have.
No questions?
I'll just make a comment, if that's okay, Commissioner. I just want to thank you all for being here and for doing this work. I'm naive. I had no idea that you did this process, and I'm enlightened and grateful that you have done this, and I appreciate not only your work, but I have to acknowledge Kendra and Dave, who are in the room, and the countless hours she puts in and the work that she does. I am not surprised you found no discrepancies here in Carver County. So I have to thank you for that. This is a topic that I get asked frequently and have dug into as well. So I appreciate your work and continue to learn more. So thank you.
Just a question, Laura, do you do it for the fame or the money, this whole process?
Well, really both.
Yeah, thanks for doing this. I think that, Sam, right? You said it's a nonpartisan organization. I think that there's sometimes critiques from some that it's not. So I'd be curious to know what your thoughts are on that. And then while you approach the podium, I wanted to also elevate Kendra's team too. We have had a lot of questions in the boardroom frankly, on both sides of the political spectrum, and then some in between. Some I think are motivated differently, and some really want to get down the bottom of some of the questions. And so I applaud the team for inviting people to be part of the process, because I think one of the best things you can do is get close to it, and you can read anything you want. You can find anything you want on social. You can Google whatever you want. But if you're part of the process and you're the kind of the neck to choke, if you will, you look at it differently. I also wanted to say there's an article that was put out on CBS News 6 days ago that also elevated our team uncovering something and following the process when something goes awry. And then lastly, I'd say sometimes you play whack-a-mole. You answer the questions and you get 6 more questions. You whack-a-mole again and you play 6 more questions. And almost all the either outstanding questions or questions that just persist seem to be questions about things that are outside of our control locally. They're state or federal based things. And so, you know, we go to the person that's the front of the desk that handles the elections, and she finds the answers and continues to find the answers. But a lot of the beefs, if you will, that are still recurring, and it's not lost on me the next year leading up to the election cycle, we're going to see more of this stuff come in here. I think our team's done a good job of delineating what's state responsibility, what's federal responsibility, and what's local responsibility. So with that, Sam, the question about partisanship.
Yeah, I will be happy to answer that, and Laura can fill in anything that I miss as the State League president. So yeah, we have 2 main areas of our work. Empowering voters, so candidate forums, our voter guide, and that's how most members of the community are familiar with the League of Women Voters. And then we also have our defending democracy work, which is the work that we lead at the Capitol through our advocacy. And our advocacy, we focus on issues that our members have studied and reached consensus on over the past 50 plus years. And so many of those positions do align with the political party. So when we are at the Capitol, often the positions that we support are supported similarly by another political party, or in certain areas where we are supporting positions, those positions are frequently associated with the political party. But we don't support the political party, we don't support any candidates, but we do support the certain issues, and we make our voices heard on what we feel about that issue based on the position that the League of Women Voters has set through our member consensus process. So yeah, we are also associated. I think that's all I'll say about that, actually.
No, I'll just say, as Sam said, nonpartisan means that we don't support political parties, we don't support any candidates. But nonpartisan does not mean neutral, and does not mean non-political. So we do, in fact, you'll see as League of Women Voters members that you know are probably some of the most passionate people about particular issues. So we will support issues, but we do not support candidates or political parties.
Thank you.
Also, I want to thank you for being here, and thank you to Kendra and her team. With Commissioner Degler and myself were part of the canvassing board that went through the results last fall, and you mentioned the 3 precincts, and we went through that process, and there, again, that was a learning experience for me. But to see the professionalism that took place in that room, we had some individuals on the sideline that wanted to be heard about certain topics, and Kendra handled that very professionally, and we got our business done, and we moved on. And I think that's always going to be a part of elections, and it's going to get more and more, unfortunately, with the atmosphere and the environment that we're in. But I think if we can continue to do our job on a professional level, I think that's very important for our staff. And so thank you, Kendra and your team and Dave.
And we'd like for you to be able to use our report, commissioners, to be able to answer some of those questions that you get and provide some data to people who are wondering about, just how this works. So hopefully that will be a good resource for you as well.
I'd like to thank the league for all the good work you do. I'd like to thank Kendra and Dave. I think they do an outstanding job. I think it's been proven. Commissioner Uterman brought it up about the story from CBS, but I was really confused by that because it's really an incomplete story, because it didn't have the individuals listed and it didn't have the organization that they represented. If I get arrested, it's going to be Tim Lynch from Carver County. And I was really curious, do you have any insight on that, about why that was not listed, Kendra or Dave or the league? I'm really curious.
The league does not have any insight on that.
Sarah? Colin, put it on your
Good
timer. We gotta
morning,
get-
Mr. Chair and Commissioners and everybody else here. So my answer is going to be very similar to Laura Helmer's. I do not. I will share with you that with our involvement in the reporting and helping with the investigation, I don't even know who the other 12 counties are in my role. We know Carver County. That is not something that has been shared. I do believe that there's I do know the names of the individuals from the reporting and from questions in the investigation. But my understanding is that it's possible that ongoing investigations are taking place.
Oh, okay.
And that the investigation may or may not be concluded at all levels. So potentially, maybe more information will come out in the future when things are concluded. So
That answers my question. Thank you so much.
thank you.
And are you done?
Yes.
So, thank you, Sarah and everybody. And this is going to be a great topic in this room. And we got some ballot board questions we got to get continue to talk about in here. I'm 110% confident that whatever happens on with our elections here in Carver County with Kendra and Dave and our staff is by 100% done the way it's supposed to be done. I get concerned about, as we know, once a bad ballot is in the batch, it's in there for good. And so I think what a lot of people get concerned about is perhaps the ease of being able to vote with a state-issued driver's license, but not legally allowed to vote issues and others. And so I think a lot of people look at counting all the ballots, good and bad, they always add up. They seem to always add up, at least in Carver County. But what are the criteria for voting? It has gotten easier and easier, and mail-in voting, and I mean even. Well, I'm not going to quote Putin today, but even he said, yeah, that's a big problem, that mail-in voting. And so I think that's where a lot of the debate is about do we really know who you are when you vote? Because once your ballot is in there, it's pretty hard to get it out. And I think those 700 or 800 ballots were caught before they were in, right, Kendra?
Yes, hello again, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Yes, there were no ballots issued in any of the fraudulent applications that were attempted. All of those were, if they were entered into the system, were very quickly by the system's checks and balances flagged as suspect and would have involved the additional normal everyday investigations and review that are taking place across the state in all 87 counties. And so nothing ever got to the point where there would have been a ballot issued because those voter registrations were not they were not in the system as legitimate registrations and would not have shown up in any roster. And so the one thing that I will add without, you'll get more with me rather than less, but I will share that the checks and balances within the system worked. This is not something that was identified because of the scope. This is day in, every day, checks and balances flagging in all 87 counties. So the flagging of the records is routinely part of the security of our system, and the combination of the security in place as well as the hands-on election officials investigating further those flagged records. So it was never at a point where any ballots would be issued or cast for any of these suspect records. But again, these kinds of flags, whether it's something of this scope or an individual, I call the onesie twosies coming through across the state, are going to get flagged for the same conditions in the same way, whether it's one suspect registration attempt or the close to 600 that were referenced.
Thank you. And we'll look forward to hearing more about that situation from you.
I would add this, just as we have this report, which tracks the back end, the ballot portion of the process, on our website, you will find an equal, if not more, amount of information that will help answer your questions about the checks and balances on the front end, the registration portion of the process. So they're all there, and the information about it is all there for you to be able to access.
Thank you very much. Hearing no other questions? Okay,
Thank you.
we are going to adjourn this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you so much.